Hello, everyone. We are so excited to be here for another teacher sharing session. And today, Tenley, we are looking forward to hearing what you have for us about what the program should look like. We're all starting to think about exams in May and June and everything. So this is a very timely session to have, almost like we planned it or something. Um, so, just a reminder to everyone listening, if you have any questions at all, just post them in the chat or you can ask them at the end, and we will make sure to get those answered for you. Okay.
Okay, hi everyone. My name is Tenley Dick, and I'm happy to share information with you today about the print programs that are required for every performance exam. These programs are homework that students can do ahead of the exam and are worth a percentage of the overall mark. They get 10 marks, so 10% of the overall for these print programs. It's an important part of it. And for many students, this is a creative outlet that they are rewarded for, and it's another way of setting them up for success. I'm assuming that you all have the handout that was sent out, so we're just going to do an overview and walk through the requirements. Obviously, we encourage students to prepare or start working on the written program several weeks prior to the exam date. And if possible, proof the written program for the student. I can't stress that enough. They're liable to miss something, spellings or whatever. And of course, that should include the order of performance. And I think that was discussed in the sharing session last month. So there's lots of detail about that already up on the website. So just following along in the handout, the cover page, the required information is the student's name, first and last, the date, including the year. They sometimes forget that, the time, the location. And for that, we mean including the church or studio or hall name, and the town or city, and the province. Kids tend to live in a bubble and think that it's a given which province. And of course, these are going on all across Canada, so they need to say that as well. The exam level, whether it's Northern Lights star performance, A, B, C, D, or a full exam. So they need to say the level on the cover. And in the case of theme exams, we want the title of the theme included. So that needs to be on the cover as well. The Northern Lights CNCM label needs to be on the cover page or some sort of identification. It can be the logo, but that's optional. It can also be the kids just simply writing in Northern Lights, CNCM, and whatever the exam is. And of course, spelling is something that you want to check for on every page. So CNCM does not specify the format of the program. It can be a fold over, it can be a trifold, a single page, but all of the information must appear. Okay, so this is just an example of the typical fold over program. Another way is, this is the cover. You can see there's little trivets holding it together, and then flipping up, she did a picture. And this is a little bit of a bio and the thank you. And then flip up one more and the program. Are you seeing that okay, Lois? Is that clear enough? Okay. Another way is, this is what it looks like, the cover, but you go this way. Program notes inside, we'll talk about that in a little more detail. So that's a way to make These are samplings of not just my students, but also from some other teachers. And I have to say that the kids are so creative. This is not me, and from other teachers that I'm hearing from, it's not them either. This is the kids. They have unlimited creative ideas, so just let them run with it because they come up with all kinds of cool things. Run with it to a point. This is where the parents get involved. So there might be some costs involved, like going to Michael's and Dollar Store and wherever, whatever they want to do. This is another type of open it up picture. And then the program is inside. And the program notes were included that way. There's many different ways to include the program notes. And then one final one to show you, this was a Halloween spooktacular theme, and the button opened up. So all kinds of cool ideas from the kids. So any of those formats and even other formats. I mean, we have some that are done as booklets, so really the sky's the limit. I wanted to show you one sample of a cover page. This was all hand drawn. And of course, we give, or CNCM likes to see handwritten programs. I mean, they can be handwritten, they can be computer generated. Whether it's the handwork doesn't all need to be drawing and coloring. It can be printing, cutting and pasting and adding accessories. But on this one, it was a who, what, when, where. My own daughter added why and put in because my mom made me. So there's that. Not sure what the examiner thought of that, but anyways. Should also mention, I don't know if there's any questions at this point about the cover page. If there are, we can talk about that first because I want to just talk briefly or show you briefly about the posters for the A and B levels. But are there any questions about or comments about the cover page? I've got many other samples, but I think you get the idea. So for Anderson and Bouchard levels in the STAR performances, those are generally very young students and obviously first timers. And for the A and B, they do not need to do these types of programs. They simply do a poster. That can be on poster board, but I mean, some of them are done on pretty just heavy paper. So as long as they have the name of the exam on it somewhere, the date and location, the time, they can do artwork related to the music, and they need to have the composer and the titles. Because it's only 4 pieces on these, this one did, pictures to match the pieces, as did this one. I mean, they sort of end up with their own interesting. And this one, this is all hand colored and then with added things stuck on. And this particular one did at least 2 or 3 of these posters because they wanted one sort of on an easel board up at the performance. And then they had 1 or 2 in the audience. Well, one for myself and then one for the audience. So again, all kinds of creative ideas. So the posters are for the Anderson and Bouchard levels. And then by the Crawley level, they start doing, this is a Crawley level. By that time, they start doing the more traditional type of program. Also, the programs can be all kinds of sizes. I'll show you some of the, like this is tiny, tiny. Like it's just, with on beautiful paper, and they go right up to something quite large on construction paper, or like a full 8 by 11 with, you know, actually a book form. So, any questions about the posters or cover page or comments? You maybe have some own cool ideas from your students.
I do have a quick question about the poster. So just to clarify, if you're doing the poster, then it sounds like you don't have to have one for every member of the audience. Like the programs, you would have one for everyone that's coming, but the poster is more just this is for them to
Yeah,
be able to kind of interact with their program and be creative.
correct,
Okay.
correct. For the Anderson and Bouchard, they really are only required to make one poster.
Okay.
Um, as examiners, what we do if we're doing in-person exams, they're sometimes too big to take back with us, and often, and you want the kids to be able to keep their posters. So we'll just take pictures of it, for marking later or whatever. But definitely only one is required. I just mentioned this one, it was so unusual for her to make two or three, but they're only required to make one poster. And yes, yeah, we're going to come to some of those details, but for the other programs from Crawley level and up, they do need to provide for guests and examiner. Um, but I mean, not every single person. Like a family can share, a couple can share, right? Grandpa and grandma
Right.
can share one program. So you can also put in the chat if you're more interested in seeing, if you want to see more examples, and whether you're interested in seeing um, up to grade 5 or 6, or more interested in how it looks for the program notes. When we come to that part, I'll show you some samples of that, because that becomes even more challenging and interesting. So the biographies, the required information are, of course, the student's name and the age indication, either their actual age or their school grade, and that's necessary for the examiner to understand age appropriateness, language, all of that. And of course, in the case of adults, this would not be expected. It's nice to see interesting information like hobbies, musical interests, whether piano or otherwise, and just whatever they'd like to share about themselves, family. Um, and of course, age appropriate information. And a picture is welcome. It's an added feature. We see that often, but it's not required. They don't have to do that. That's an optional thing. And again, of course, checking spelling. And when we're talking about spellings, it's important to use Canadian spellings for the words color and favorite. And I think most of the kids in school, in Canadian schools, are already there, but there's autocorrect and things happen. So you just want to check for that too. So any questions, comments on the biography part of things?
I do have another question. When you're talking about age appropriate information, can you just kind of expand on that a little bit? Like, how would that look for a grade one person or grade one student, sorry, versus like a grade six student or something? Is it just the length? Is it just the language, like you had mentioned? Um, Kind of what
Yeah,
does it
kind of
mean?
kind of all of the above, like the length, obviously. It can be very short for a grade one student, right? Just so that you've got the basic information, even the sentence structure, um, just what they're sharing. Um, and I think maybe some of the content, some of the younger ones are talking about their stuffies and their, you know, they're
Of
like
course.
it's just their interests, right? The interests are different, and certainly the length and um and the content, right?
And how
Does that
much can the parents and the teachers help with that? And how much should it just sound like the student? Is it just as long as the grammar structure is solid and the spelling is good, it's pretty okay because you want that genuine
yes,
nature of the student shining through?
absolutely. Like, yes, the grammar and the spelling, yes, that's where the parents teacher would help out. But, you know, a 7-year-old's comments should sound like a 7-year-old, not with language that a 16-year-old would use, right? So we do want it to be their own. I had one student who wrote, music is a ginormous part of my life. And I thought that was a really cool, she was maybe 9 at the time. So you want it to be, if it's their wording and their thoughts and comments, provided it's okay to share. You don't want oversharing there either. So parents can check things like that,
Sure.
but
Yeah.
a 7-year-old's bio should sound like it was written by a 7-year-old, or at least, well, not just written and dictated, but written, right, by a
Hmm.
7-year-old. And by the same token, a 16-year-old who is doing this the night before exam and slapping down 4 or 5 sentences, that, yeah, you that's what I mean by, what the expectations are. You expect Examiners expect more than that from a 16-year-old. There should be more effort, right? And you
That
can
makes
tell that by as soon as you look at a program. So whether computer or hand or whatever, there's um, there's some programs that have a lot of effort put in and others that do not. So yeah.
that makes sense. Thank you.
Okay. So the program information, and we're talking about this page. Um, Obviously, you want the correct order of performance. That sounds easy, but it often gets mixed up. A kid will come to their exam and go, that way, I didn't want to do that one there. And it's kind of like, well, once it's in the print program, that's the way it goes. Or they change it on the fly. And that has to do with maybe their cue cards, which was mentioned in last month's sharing session. So it's important to get the correct order. We start talking about that 5, 6 weeks prior to the exam, just to make sure that this is what you're comfortable with and what we're going to go with. We want the full title of each work. And the example I gave there is, you don't want to just say Musette J.S. Bach, right? From the Anna Magdalena notebook and the BWV number. You want the composer's full name and dates, and the opus and catalog numbers for traditional works. Sources for contemporary books. This was also touched on in the last sharing session. Northern Lights books are original sources. So it's fine to put Northern Lights 3B or, Northern Lights Primer 2, whatever it is. But very often in conservatory books, any conservatory, the sources are given at the bottom of the piece, at the bottom of the first page. Those are the sources, like the original source or the opus number. Most of the time, the conservatory books are not considered the original source. And if you have any questions about any of these, you can certainly contact the office too. In the case of arrangements, we're looking for the arranger's full name and dates. And the encore should not be listed in the print program. So if they're doing a full performance exam, there should only be 7 pieces listed in their print program. And just handwrite the encore in on the examiner's program. That's the only one that requires it, so that the examiner knows. I mean, the audience obviously knows that or at least parents know that there's going to be an encore coming, and the teacher, but it should not show up in their programs. And for grade 5 and 6, which is levels J and K in the STAR performances. We want the historical period to appear. So that would mean that you would add the word Baroque there, or Romantic, Canadian 20th century or 21st century. That historical information starts at grade 5 in their print program. And for grade 7 and up, which is the lowest level and up, L, we do want to have program notes included. So there's many ways of doing that. Like I showed you with this one, it was just an insert and it was front back with program notes. It can be a simple slide it in, like just slide it in and you know, as a loose, it doesn't have to be bound. This one that's coil bound, I mean, that is all bound in, but it doesn't have to be. It can be an insert like this. And this one I thought was interesting when we're talking about the effort that goes in. This one was done during COVID. And this student was really upset that they couldn't get into Michael's dollar store anywhere. Like you couldn't go buy anything. So she used paper that she had at home and cut and pasted and tried to make it as pretty as she could, right? Or at least to try so that there was an effort because they couldn't get all the stickers and, you know, add-ons that she wanted. And then she had ideas for the program notes too that she couldn't do. So she took, I don't know if you can see this, she took a paper clip and fashioned it into a treble clef just to bind these because that's all she had at home to work with. So it may not look as fancy as some of them, but this was right, I think, May 2020. So COVID was new and everything was closed. You couldn't get anything. So it really was literally what you had at home. So program note can look that way. Then there's some who go to great lengths with program notes. This one is it's not a large program. When I first looked at it, I thought this is grade 8, and I thought, how is she going to do this? Well, here is where I put the paper, and it slid right out. There's her thank you. And then you just opened up the paper for all the program notes. This was a grade 7, which pretty creative right there off the cover page. Thank you at the back, fancy paper. So you open it up, fancy paper, and there's all the program notes. These are all fastened in. And there's the program and the bio. So they are really creative when it comes to this was one that looked okay. It was a flip up. This is grade 7, I believe, the thank you. And then you turned it over to the back. And there were the program notes. So, I mean, these are kids that really take this to the next level. These are just samplings because certainly just an insert is fine, you know, as long as it's got some effort behind it. But those are some samplings of adding program notes from grade 7 and up. So are there any comments about that part? I'm not sure which grade levels people are most interested in.
We haven't had any discussion really about which grade levels they want to hear more about.
Okay.
Um, but I did have a question. You had the one example of the spiral notebook
Yeah.
bound one. And I know that in our sessions, we sometimes talked about that there should be some kind of personalized aspect or creative, something that they're doing with it. Would that program get marked well because it looks like it's mostly computer generated? Is or maybe I'm just not seeing.
Yes, it is computer generated, but there's computer generated where you just have your text, 4 pages and slap it on. When there's things that are added, like there was a picture added here, there's formatting involved, right? And then with each of the program notes, there were pictures added. This one has quite a bit of effort.
So really, if you have that techie student, then they can just take it away
Yes,
and do their magic. And if you have more of an artsy,
exactly.
scrapbooking type student, then they can kind of play to their
Exactly.
strengths. Okay.
Some of the kids are not interested in, and it shows. This was a young man who did this, not nearly interested in all of this kind of stuff, right?
Yep.
So, I mean, I don't want to gender specific these things, but these are students who enjoy the creative side. Some of the kids, regardless of gender, just enjoy doing all the work on the computer. So, I mean, something like that has had a lot of work put into it is just as valuable as this little one who did a lot of printing and cutting and pasting. And, it's not just about how they look, how the printed programs look, it's about the effort that goes into it. So, good point, because we also see those computer generated that literally just have the basic information on each page.
Mhm.
And that's one thing if you're 7, but if you're 13, you can go to a little more effort, right?
Yeah, that's true. And that one has color on it. It's not just a black and white kind of
Right.
on normal 8.5 by 11
Well, and they
printer
went to the
paper.
trouble of getting a cover page on it and
Yeah,
coil binding it.
yeah,
Some of them will just come back and have staples.
right. Okay.
Oh, and good thing that you mentioned that, because some of them will then go to, they don't have to do the coil bonding, but look at this, like putting in the ribbons, like to hold the pages together. That's
That's
pretty cool.
so cool. Oh my goodness.
And then look at this one. This one went and burnt literally took a match and burnt all the edges,
I don't think my
right?
nerves could have taken that as a student.
No.
Like,
And this was someone else's exam center, but the examiner told me that everybody's copies looked like this. Like this person had gone to the trouble of doing that for all of them. And this one I thought was pretty cute. There's the cover page and the about. And then over here, one of the pieces was Con Tenerezza tea from Sounds Delicious by Rennie Bouchard. And they had a tea bag attached in each of the programs and covered it with Tenerezza tea. I mean, there's so many cool things that you can do. I've had students and I've seen other students who have um, put in a little Easter egg clue in their print program as to what their encore is going to be.
that's
So there'll
amazing.
be a little picture or something. Um, One of my students who did that, I think it was a grade 3 program, and her grade 1, 2, 3, something like that. And I can't remember the name of the piece, but it was some little mouse piece that was her encore. And the other pieces were all different things. And she was trying to keep things a surprise from her mom, who was very involved. So she put this little picture of a mouse somewhere, and it ended up as a big fight because mom said, "What is that mouse picture doing there? It has nothing to do with." So there was a big argument about that. And I guess finally she had said to her, because mom was insisting that that be changed out, and she wouldn't. And she finally says, "It's the name of my encore." And mom just, oops. because she didn't want mom to know what the encore was.
Yeah.
So when I say parental involvement, I mean at your own risk. You know your own kids, right? So um, yeah, lots of fun things can happen that way.
That's amazing. And that's such a good way for, within reason, as you have said, for parents to be involved and to be helping and
Yeah,
just to know what's going on and offer support as the student needs. And
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. And then, I mean, it can be a budget thing too, wherever this, like all of these fancy things. Um, and some of them, like they want to stick a lot of this, the big treble clef sticker and really fancy blingy stuff all over it. I mean, they have to do this for all of their programs, right? So it's okay if you're making 3 or 4 programs, 2 or 3, 4, but if you're making 20, and I always have people asking, can I just make one and then photocopy? And of course, the answer is no. They need to look the same. When you go to any kind of a recital anywhere, professional, semi-professional, university level, all the programs look the same. You don't make one special one for somebody. I know that kids want to make a special one for the examiner, but they do all need to look the same. You can't just make one really nice one and then photocopy everybody else's. They need to look the same. The thank you, often at the back, but depending on what format you take, that doesn't need to be very lengthy. Some kids do, but all that's required is just a general thank you to the family and the teacher. And if they want to thank the examiner, that's optional. And that's really all that's needed there. It's just a courtesy. So we've sort of touched on general impression. That's kind of overall attractiveness. The ease of reading. Sometimes we see print programs that have, you know, 7 different fonts and different sizes and different things. When it was clear they ran out of time to do, or the formatting, whether it's any of those kinds of things, like it has to be easy to read. Now, if it's a 6-year-old printing on their posters, as long as you can read it, right? Because this was all hand printed. Um, and then the general impression of the creative and artistic that we've already touched on, whether it's handwritten and hand colored or computer generated or cutting and pasting and adding things and pictures and whatever they want to do. And the time and effort, I think that's the big one in the creation of the program. Whether it's handmade or decorated, cutout shapes, tied programs like those little bows or the paper clip, that all requires more time than a computer printout. So adding personal touches. And then, of course, if the graphics and pictures are attractive, the subtle and suggested graphics, that was kind of what I was mentioning about the little Easter eggs, you know, hints about the encore. Overlays, when you've got like those kinds of things, or even the plastic cover on the big coil bound. Representation of themes. If they're doing a theme exam, it's really nice to see that throughout their print program. I've had some students do like all women composers or all girl composers, as the younger ones will say. And some of them then had pictures of each of the women composers on one of the pages, like in sort of an oval shape, and all kinds of cool things that they can do regardless of the theme. Had sports themes and even if it's not a theme, like this one with the tea bag, that was a general exam. This was just, a little Easter egg about one of the pieces. So that was kind of cool. So marks will be deducted for omissions and spelling errors. And again, we're talking Canadian spellings. And we've also touched on that all the programs need to appear the same. not just special ones for the examiner. So I don't know if there's any comments. Anybody wants to share some cool things their students have done for print programs or questions?
I think I have one more technical question just for if a student is doing an arrangement of a piece. You mentioned that the arranger's name and dates need to be included. Would that be in addition to the original composer's name and dates, or would it only be the arrangers just saying arranged by um,
I
whoever it
think
was?
that depends on the piece. Deborah can jump in here, but I think when it's like a Nancy and Randall Faber arrangement, I don't think you have to have the original there unless it was Tchaikovsky or something like that, right? If they're folk songs, I'm not sure that you need to do, but because I think in Deborah's performance fun books, we just usually do arranged by Deborah Wanless. Is that right, Debbie?
Generally, students would identify if it's a folk song and then the arranger, because sometimes they'll identify it as Canadian or French or German, whatever the case may be. But even say if it's a Broadway piece, the original composer should be there. So most times there should be something as to where it's original. Public domain is different in that sense.
And they need it in the print program too, just not just in the cue cards, correct?
Correct.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Does anyone else have any other questions or comments about today? Tenley, you're getting your fan club is raving about your about your information that you were presenting. Um, that was a great variety of programs that you were showing. We did have one question about the oral presentation of whether cue cards can be used for that, just to kind of prompt the student, I believe. I'm getting big nod.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Definitely cue cards. And for whoever's asking, check out last month's sharing session, the April one. That's discussed in detail there, the cue cards and their oral presentation, right?
Amazing. All right. Does anyone else have any other comments or questions about today or really about anything? Because, like we said, exams are coming up, so you might have some panic moments starting to happen of what should we do for this? I didn't think about this.
And also one mention that one print program should be ready 2 weeks prior to the exam if your exams are going to be virtual, like with a virtual examiner, because they need time for all of that. You can't just send that in, the day before, 2 days before. So it's time to be on that. Like we're working on this in the studio because exams are at the end of this month. So yeah, they can't just slap this one off 2 nights before the exam.
Or at 2 a.m. the night before, you know.
Or at 2 a.m. Kathy, I thought you might have some to show. If anybody else has programs to show, and I've got a ton more that I could show, but I'm not sure what people are interested in. So,
I had one come in last night. It's in the shape of a grand piano. It looks really cool.
I've
Yeah.
got to show you one more. Thank you for that, Kathy. This was a cat theme.
Cute.
She made like 4 or 5 of these, and there's all her cat pieces. This was a lot of work. So when we're talking, and this was, I mean, the only thing computer here was the printing, right? Everything else was, and all of those programs look the same. Yeah, and grand piano shape, how cool is that, right? What grade is that, Kathy?
Uh, two. But
Oh, wow.
she's the how old is she? She's probably 12.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
What a cool thing to do.
Mhm.
Yeah, the sky's the limit. Like teachers sometimes ask, well, how do I help them with this or what do I suggest? I don't think you have to suggest anything. I think the kids just, at least that's been my experience. They have wonderful ideas.
And tell
I
me,
think usually, oh, sorry.
no, that's okay. Go ahead, Kathy.
Well, I'm just going to say less glitter is better.
Yeah,
We
we've
all
had that
get
too.
covered in it.
Well, and if mom and dad are paying for all the materials, then again, it has to be parent approved, right? So,
And I think we should just mention that um, as long as the whole activity is completed, those so-called just computer generated, if everything is completed and accurate and without errors, they will still have a strong mark because the
oh,
homework is done. A lot of what we were looking at today were 100 percenters, and we don't want people to think that they have to spend money. I mean, they can be nicely done and still have a very strong mark. So
mhm.
I just thought maybe we should clarify that don't want to scare anyone because some of those were pretty ambitious programs, beautiful and delightful when they come into your exam session for sure. And keepsakes, these are memories that kids are building when they create these kind of programs.
Yeah, yeah. I could have shown some of the others, but with names on them, I didn't really want to show you this isn't great, right? But I think you all know what we mean. But yeah, if they do the work and have a print program, obviously they're going to get a mark, right? So it's really
I
nice
think
to come.
usually the problem is proofreading, really.
Yeah,
You just find a lot of spelling mistakes and stuff like that.
that's another reason not to do this at the last minute. Like, yeah, or you
And
get 10 of them in at the same time for proofreading, and it's just like I can't do these all tonight, right? Sorry, Lois.
no, it's okay. I was just going to kind of talk about how the ones that you were showing today were quite creative and really like top notch examples, but um yeah, if you have a conversation with your child or with your student as well, just how to do this responsibly and how to be able to do if you have 25 guests coming, right? Like
Mhm.
how do you make this feasible financially and in terms of time and resources and everything, then this is teaching them life skills as well of just how do we do this? And I think that's what music is great for, is just that you learn all of these skills that are applicable to so many parts of life.
Yeah. Like Deborah said, they can do a very basic without spending a lot of money if they want to make a lot of programs and still cover all the bases. Right.
Yeah, and we can go so far as to say that those what just appear to be more of a plain Jane program, if everything is correct. I mean, there will be deductions for inaccuracies and missing things, but they're still going to score nicely in the 80s for those. We start to see the kids loving doing this and think that it has to be 100. Well, when are our marks consistently 100? But, you know, they can still do very nicely on a mark with what we're saying is more just more simple, plain. And that's a choice without it really impacting the overall mark because this is homework based.
Yeah. And this little kitten one, I mean, this was really $0. Like that's the work put in by a student, right? Like the cutting and the pasting and all of that. But there's no glitter, there's no fancy anything else. It's basic work with some creativity added, right? And they don't all have to be like that. You're not going to do that for 30 programs, right?
Perfect. All right. Does anyone else have any questions or comments? again about today or about anything else that you're curious about. Perfect. Okay, so thank you, Tenley. This was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed seeing all of these different programs and um, yeah, that was just very inspiring to see what it could look like. And I think that we have some more just examples of programs and program notes and um, details about what's inside the programs on our website. So if you just want to head on over there as well, then you can kind of just take a bit of a closer look at some different program styles and just see what information specifically is included for all of that. And don't forget to come back next month for our sharing session. I think it'll be an open Q&A, so just bring any questions you have about anything because you're going to be in the middle of exams at that point. So if you have last minute questions or anything, we'll just have a general kind of information, question, comment, experiences session. So I think that'll be a lot of fun. So come again in June.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.